Chapter 12, Learning Objective Number 6. Explain the accounting issues related to intangible asset impairments. Impairment of limited life intangibles. The rules that apply to impairments of property, plant, and equipment as discussed in Chapter 11 also apply to limited life intangibles. A company should review limited life intangibles for impairment at certain points, whenever events or changes in circumstances indicate that the carrying amount of the asset may not be recoverable. In performing this recoverability test, the company estimates the future cash flows expected from use of the assets and its eventual disposal. If the sum of the expected future net cash flows is less than the carrying amount of the asset, an impairment loss has occurred. The impairment loss is the carrying amount of the asset less the fair value of the impaired asset. As with other impairments, the loss on the limited life intangible is reported as part of the income from continuing operations in the Other Expenses and Losses section of the income statement. Impairment of indefinite life intangibles other than goodwill. Companies should test indefinite life intangibles other than goodwill for impairment at least annually. The impairment test for an indefinite life asset other than goodwill is a fair value test. In this test, if the fair value is less than the carrying amount, the company recognizes an impairment loss for the difference. The recoverability test is not used. Impairment of goodwill. The impairment rule for goodwill is a two-step process. First, a company compares the fair value of the reporting unit to its carrying amount, including goodwill. If the fair value of the reporting unit exceeds the carrying amount, goodwill is not impaired and the company does not have to do anything else. If the fair value of the reporting unit is less than the carrying amount of the net assets, then the company would perform a second step to determine possible impairment of the goodwill. An impairment loss occurs if the implied value of the goodwill is less than the carrying amount of the goodwill. Illustration 1211 summarizes the impairment test for various intangible assets. Limited life, indefinite life other than goodwill, and goodwill.